So we shall not hold back on topics that may be somewhat controversial. That is good enough for you to get your attention. Because at the mere mention of controversy, our ears prick up, and we stay awake during the talk. So this is duties of men in general. It comes from the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we have studied, 15th chapter, verse 66. Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yena
Yena
Yatra Yato Nripa Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Sa Teneheta Karyani Sateneheta Karyani
Sateneheta Karyani
Sateneheta Karyani
Sateneheta Karyani
Naro
Nanyayar
Anapadi Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Sateneheta Karyani
Sateneheta Karyani
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Sateneheta Karyani
Sateneheta Karyani
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yad Yasya Vani Siddham Syad
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Yena Yatra Yato Nripa
Sateneheta Karyani
Sateneheta Karyani
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Naro Nanyayar Anapadi
Yasya
Yasya
of a man
Amen.
Va either
Either
Anasiddham
Anisiddham
not forbidden
not forbidden
Syat
Syat
it is so
it is so
Yena
Yena
by which means
by which means
Yatra
Yatra
in place and time
in place and time
Yatra
Yatra
from which
from which
Nripa
Nirva
O king
O king
Saha such a person
Tena
Tena by such a process
by such a process
Yeta should perform Karyani
Karyani
prescribed activities
prescribed activities
Nara
Nara
a person
a person
Na not Anyai by the other ways
other ways
Anapadi in the absence of danger
in the absence of danger
in normal conditions in the absence of danger O King Yudhishthira a man should perform his prescribed activities according to his status of life with the things, endeavors, process and living place that are not forbidden for him and not by any other means. Please repeat. In normal conditions, in the absence of danger, O King Yudhishthira, a man should perform his prescribed activities according to his status of life with the things, endeavors, process and living place that are not forbidden for him and not by any other means. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This instruction is given for men in all statuses of life. Generally, society is divided into Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmacharis, Vanaprasthas, Sannyasis, and Grihasthas. Everyone must act according to his position and try to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that will make one's life successful. This was instructed in Naimisharanya, Ata Kumbir, Dvidasheshta, Varnashrama Vibhagasha, Swarushtitasya Dharmasya, Samsiddhi Haritoshana. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging his prescribed duties, dharma, according to caste divisions and order of life, is to please the Lord, Hari. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, 13th verse. Everyone should act according to his occupational duties, just to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then everyone will be happy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? So, I was sitting on the bank of the Ganges. It's a good way to begin a class. And Srila Prabhupada's servant just came out of his room. He came down to the bank of the river in Mayapur. And he said, "You know what Prabhupada said?" We said, "No." You were there, we weren't there. Tell us. He said, Srila Prabhupada said, "This movement is simply meant to make everyone happy. It has no other purpose." That's it. Movement is meant to make everybody happy. It has no other purpose. Very well worth remembering it. What we're actually trying to do individually. Sometimes we get caught up with my happiness or my family's happiness. But as a movement, we're meant to be working together to make others happy. That's what Prabhupada intended. We measure our success by how happy others are. But it's a different type of happiness. When we were sitting around the fire last night, I was reminded of the story of the elderly gentleman who lived in the middle of the forest, and he was burning wood to make charcoal. You know charcoal? I talk because sometimes people look at me and they have no idea what charcoal is, because they're used to central heating, where there is no fire, no flames. As we were coming back last night with the torchlit procession, Gauravani said to me, he said, "There's something ancient and traditional about this, men and fire." But how close do we get to fire these days? Stick your hand up if you have a real fire in your house. Okay. So not the majority, I'm sorry to say. So, men and fire. So, he was not lighting a fire for the purpose of keeping warm, but he was burning wood that he found in the forest to make charcoal. Charcoal is half-burned wood. And if you burn it halfway, it's very easy to transport. It's still a very good fuel, but it doesn't weigh very much. So it's a good occupation for an older man. Those of us who are of retirement age should certainly think about retiring to the forest and becoming charcoal makers. So, all right, on the GBC, the responsibilities are done. Me and you in the forest making charcoal. So on this particular occasion, a much younger man came stumbling through the wood. He was covered in perspiration, or sweat, as you would say in America. And he was scratched by the brambles of the forest. He clearly was not a creature of the forest. He didn't know his way around. He was breathless. He said to the old man, he said, "Can you help me?" He said, "I'm lost, completely lost. I don't know where I am. I was out hunting in the forest. I got completely lost. My horse ran off. I lost my servant, and everything's finished. I'm completely lost." He said, "Yes, I'll help you. First, please sit down, have some water, and would you like something to eat?" He gave him something to eat. And by that time, the man was tired and he fell asleep. In the morning, he woke up and he said, "Look, I was a stranger, and you fed me, you watered me, you rested me." He said, "I'm so thankful to you. You don't know who I am, I don't know who you are, but just friendship between strangers has given me great hope in humanity." He said, would you do one more thing for me? He said, yes, of course. He said, would you see me to the edge of the forest so that I can return home? He said, yes, of course. I know that path very well. I take that path every week to go and sell my charcoal. So he went to the edge of the forest. He said, would you do just one more thing for me? He said, yes. He said, would you walk with me one more mile? One more mile. He said, yes, of course. He said, you're pleasant company, let's walk. So he walked and he came to a beautiful grove of sandalwood trees, over 100 sandalwood trees, beautiful fragrance, beautiful vision of these sandalwood trees. And he said, this is yours. He said, what do you mean? It's not mine. Nothing belongs to me. I just make charcoal. I have no money. He said, no, I'm giving it to you. He said, but who are you? He said, well, I didn't tell you. I'm the king. This is yours. He said, oh, Your Majesty. He got down on his knees and he said, it must have been England where we do such things. And, yeah. So, he said, please look after it well. He said, oh, Your Majesty, I will. 1 year later, the king came back, and as he was going with his retinue past the sandalwood forest, he noticed not a tree was to be seen. Not a tree was to be seen. And he made his way to the little man in the forest. He said, last year I gave you a sandalwood grove, and now it's not there. He said, oh yes, it made very good charcoal. He said, but did you not realize that one twig of a sandalwood tree, if you would only not burn it, but rub it, you would release the fragrant oil, which could be sold in the market for as much as 50 bags of charcoal. He said, oh, Your Majesty, I do not understand such things. I'm just a poor charcoal maker. Moral? Human life is meant for something more than burning the body. Meant for something more than burning the body with sense gratification. Well, the sense gratification burns the very body, which you're using to experience the so-called pleasure. And actually, if you take the body and you subject it to the disciplines and austerity of Atma-Gyan, then you will release this beautiful fragrance. The oil is within, deep within, but you can only smell the perfume if you rub. And what is the rub? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, every single day. Someone said to me the other day, because I was proudly boasting that this was my 45th year of chanting japa. I'm sorry to tell you that because I'm no fruit for 45 years. She said, how do you keep chanting for such a long time? I said, be prepared to be bored. I said, you've got to do the same boring thing over and over again. But ultimately this will lead to your Atma-Gyan, your self-realization. So this is the purpose of life. Unfortunately, most people, it must be said, are charcoal makers, simply making the charcoal, burning the body through with sense gratification. And this is most people. So the Krishna consciousness movement has been entrusted to us. The legacy of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who came to show us all how to release that sweet and sacred fragrance from within, has been entrusted to us. Not to the Prabhupada disciples. They're here today, and they will all be gone tomorrow. Take it from me. I'm not a fortune teller, I'm not an astrologer, but take it from me. There will come a time when all the Prabhupada disciples have disappeared from this earth. It will be a day of great sadness. But what it means is that you now have to prepare yourselves in life for taking up that serious and sacred mission of Srila Prabhupada. Because if you don't do it, the men on this mantra retreat, then I don't know who will do. We're also used to thinking that a preacher will do it, or somebody will do it, but perhaps not me. You see, you can't think like that. It's you. It must be you. It's got to be you, because you are the chosen ones. In fact, we are looking for a mystical sign from the heavens to say that we've been chosen to carry on the sacred mission of Srila Prabhupada. But you've already been chosen, and you can't kind of know that. It's just we have to tell ourselves that. We have to push ourselves a little more. So, in our Krishna consciousness movement, we have a form of torture. It's a form of torture. It's probably the wrong place to say, but it's a form of torture. It's called trying to stick to our legacy and tradition and trying to make ourselves relevant and accessible to the modern world. Isn't it hard? From the haircut, to the dhoti, to the food, to the singing in the street, to trying to make ourselves relevant and accessible to people who may be interested in spiritual life, but not too much. This is most people. Interested in spiritual life, but not too much. As every Indian parent has ever said to their son or daughter who has expressed an interest in ISKCON, religion is okay, but not too much. Meaning, life should go on. Make sure you have your dharma, artha, kam, before you have your moksha. Okay? So generally speaking, this is good advice. Unfortunately, when there's an emergency situation, when the world is burning, then a movement, a master comes and a movement, it develops around him in order to spread the teachings. So what of a man's position? Something has happened very interesting, something revolutionary, quite revolutionary. Somebody invented something called an MRI machine. Have you heard of them? An MRI machine. Okay. It costs quite a lot of money to go, so maybe you haven't been. In England, we have something called the National Health Service that is free medical care for everyone. Hare Krishna. I'm just putting that out there as an idea. You may be interested. Okay. Means if you have any sickness at all, there is a tool, a machine, a specialist, an expert to help you. Anyway, so these MRI machines, since the early 1990s, have been looking at how the brain functions. There's also another type of scanner called PET scanner. Now you may be interested, why is Kripamoya deviating from the Srimad Bhagavatam to talk about these things? Well, we do love science. I happen to have an affection for science. I happened to do biology before I became a devotee, so there's a lingering interest in the brain. Now most devotees, if you talk to them, they think the problem is in the mind, isn't it? What's the problem, Prabhu? It's just my mind. Certainly the youngest bhakta that we speak to will say, it's my mind. So generally speaking, we frame all of our challenges in life in terms of the mind. But the mind has a brain. The mind has a brain. Science would have you believe that the brain has a mind. We believe that the mind has a brain. So when we see the functioning of the brain, we, over the last 20 years, what has become very, very clear to scientists, and this is where the scientists have as much difficulty as the ISKCON movement, because they're finding that women's brains are very different from men's brains. Now that should have been a controversial statement in the early 1990s, isn't it? And we are all walking on eggshells, so to speak, trying not to say these things. But while ISKCON has been rubbing its hands, trying to be relevant in the modern world, science has moved ahead. There are many, many, many different ways, in fact 50, 60, 80 different ways how a woman's brain and a man's brain works differently. However, over the last 20 years, what's happened is that society has decided that men and women should be equal in pay, equal in voting rights, social status, equal in respect, and the so-called traditional roles are no longer therefore relevant. So what we've had is a sort of cultural revolution according to traditional roles for men and women. So that's social and moral, but very embarrassingly, science has been uncovering a whole range of areas in which women are really, really suited better for a certain range of tasks, and men are definitely not suited for the same tasks. The complementarity forms the full function. For instance, just in the eyes, very important part for women, for men. But did you know that men have less rods and cones? There's something at the back of the eyeball, rods and cones, that process, certain rods process black and white and the cones process color. So a woman has many, many, many more cones than a man, which means that a man has, I would look at Prabhuji's shirt here. If someone, what is your name, sir? Satish. Someone will say, a man will say, what color is that shirt? And most men in the room would go, red. And behind you, sir, your friend?
My name is Rama.
Rama. So Satish and Rama, what color are their shirts? Most men would go red and blue. Isn't it? It's easy. As we codify things like that. But a woman would look at that and go, cherry and ocean blue or azure. Because there's different range of classifications. Why? Because the female brain is geared for nurturing and therefore has to be aware of all possible shades of meaning, color, and emotional connectivity within a room. Something men are particularly not good at. So there's a whole range of things, even peripheral vision. We have peripheral vision that goes out to here. Men generally operate in this level, whereas women operate in this level. Okay? Picking up subtle cues. Picking up subtle cues. A man can enter a room and he knows where the door is, and he knows where the restroom is, and he knows where the drinks are, and he knows where the buffet table is. A woman can enter a room and within 5 minutes she knows the subtle relationship between everybody in the room and the person that they're standing with. They're very subtle things. And it has to do, part of it has to do, there's two hemispheres of the brain, and I won't keep you too long, because I can see this is burdening some of you who expected a Bhagavatam class. There's two halves of the brain, the left and the right. In between there's something called the corpus callosum. And this is the piece that links the two halves of the brain. In men, it is bigger by 30%. It's bigger by 30%. And what that means is there's more left-right coordination. More left-right coordination. So now it is easy for taking directions. And we must say, reading maps. How many, this is not me. This is not Srila Prabhupada. This is not some person back in ancient times who decided to share all this stuff. This is stuff that scientists are now coming at. Part of what I've just told you is from the University of Pennsylvania. We're not in Pennsylvania, we're in West Virginia. Okay. It's close enough to be an authority. Okay. So whether it's Japan, whether it's UCLA, whether it's different parts of the world doing this research rather embarrassingly is showing up that just as there's different brain functioning, a whole range of brain functioning, there is also roles that are better suited to that brain. It's not just the brain wiring, but it's also the hormones that are triggered by the brain in the bloodstream. So devotees, we don't normally talk like this. We just talk, because the thing is, we have a big problem. Society has moved on to social and moral and political equality. Science over the past 20 years is moving on to divergence between male and female. And the reason why that is important for us is I think we have to stop bullying ourselves when we try to excuse or apologize for ISKCON's views towards traditional roles for men and women. Because give us another 20 years, and the same scientists who are now discovering these things will be saying, actually, you know what? Having children is kind of what women's brains are geared for. So maybe child rearing would make a woman happy. And protection and giving shelter and all of that traditional role for men, perhaps that would make people happy. We live in a world where people are so unhappy that many, many people have to take drugs just to stay anywhere sane. It's a big crisis. In fact, it's an epidemic. The World Health Organization has said that basically there's a crisis in the 21st century of loneliness, mental instability, and prescription and non-prescription drug taking. And all these things go together. It's like if I tried to fix a square piece of wood into a round hole. It doesn't go. So right here in the Bhagavatam, we find that when we talk about what a man is supposed to do, it's very much in terms of what is his position in life. And then we come to ISKCON, and we suddenly have all that stripped away. Because in ISKCON, we love to talk about ashram, don't we? We love to talk about the follies of Yam Das Brahmachari, okay? And the way he's approaching brahmachari life. We tend to look at grihastas in a particular way. And every grihasta knows what they're supposed to be doing. And so, and we know what sannyasis are supposed to be doing. And we know what we don't have a clue what vanaprastha life is. But whatever it is, we like to talk about ashrams, but we don't like to talk about varna. Because your varna in ISKCON traditionally was given to you by the temple president. So we had one gentleman who was an opera singer. He was a professional opera singer. He came into the temple and he said, "Can I lead the kirtan? That's something I can do. I'm used to microphones and I don't break them by doing this. He said, no, you can't lead a kirtan. Off to the kitchen and wash the dishes." Now there's a spiritual principle in that. There's a spiritual principle in that, and we're inculcating humility and lessening of the ego in a person by engaging them in menial service, which is contraindicated by their perceived status in life. However, if you want to have a society which is a true society, which has all the varnas and the ashrams, you've really got to start talking about it. You see. In England, someone was sitting in a Bhagavatam class, and he thought to himself, really, this movement is going to grow. He's a businessman. You can see the ISKCON is going to grow. So if we grow, the number of grihastas is going to grow, and they're going to have children, and they're going to want to have a school to go to. So we already have the temples, so he was thinking perhaps we should build a school. So we went to the government and said, we need a school for, Hindu children. Vaishnava doesn't open any doors. ISKCON certainly doesn't open any doors. Hare Krishna movement may not. But Hindu in the United Kingdom does. So we need a school for the Hindu children, of course. How much money would you like? Well, we think about 12 million pounds. Pound, dollar, same thing now. Thank you, European Union. Thank you, Brexit. Some Americans think it's like if Texas was to break away from the Union, to make it a Texit. It's not quite like that. We never were quite as joined together. Anyway, and so the government gave $12 million, let's say $12 million, and they built the school from scratch. And in the middle of the school, they wanted to build a temple. The government said, sorry, we don't do temples. If you want a temple in the middle of the school, you have to. So the architect designed a temple made of wood. It was a whole Swedish design, like, made of larch. It was going to be a beautiful school, but no one liked it. So the Hindus came together and they said, no, we want a traditional temple. It must be white marble. And the devotees said, well, everything else is made of wood. Yes, but we want to if you build that, we will pay for it. So that was another $500,000. So this school now has hundreds of children. Then came a second school, third school, fourth school, fifth school, sixth school, seventh school. The government has just given another $4 million to build another school. So it seems we're onto something here. If you solve the problems of life according to people's varna and their actual needs, then you'll get engagement. ISKCON really, any Varnashram society should look like this. Like a big pyramid. The spiritually awakened ones, the chosen few at the top, the Brahmins, who must be engaged with the Kshatriyas. if you're a Brahmin, if you're wearing a Brahmin thread, you must be engaged with politicians and Kshatriyas. And the Kshatriyas must be engaged with the mercantile community and protect their interests. And those interests then must be looked after also by the labour class. This is Vedic culture. Now you may say, well, that was in India, and it was thousands of years ago, and it degenerated into the caste system, and it will never, ever be revived. I say no. I say it's something that Prabhupada wanted to revive. Now normally when we have talks about Varnashram communities, devotees normally, there's 3 of them sitting in a room, 3 people who are initiated as Brahmins, and they look at each other and they say, well, who's going to be the Sudras? It's not me, and it's not you. So, and then they end up, well, Varnashram means in ISKCON, maybe 2 cows. 2 cows and a field of cabbages. This is not good enough. We have to think in terms of society. So what is happening here is that we are being woken up, if you like, to the role of Brahmins in society, to give good, clear guidance. And part of it is to give good, clear guidance according to who the person is, according to who the person is and their respective varna and ashram in life. I have a little diagram here. It's not actually varnashram, but it's how we think that people come to ISKCON. Can everybody see that? All you need to know is it's a funnel with lots of coloured dots. I've got them to hand out, but not until the end of class. So many people come to us. Some are enlightened more to take up spiritual practices and spiritual knowledge. And eventually we come to those who have chosen to dedicate their life to it. If I take this and I turn it upside down, now the funnel becomes a pyramid, and we have Varnashram society. But it does mean that we have to start talking about Varna and not only ashram. Ashram is very clear for us. Varna is much less so. Why should that be? Because many of us have defined our life in terms of the temple. So I'm not an opera singer, I'm a dishwasher. I'm not a this, I'm not a that. And of course, our spiritual tradition says, Naham Vipro, Nacha Narapatir, Napi Vaishava Shudro, Naham Varani Nacha Kripapatir, Novanasko Yatirva, Kintu Prabor, Kintu Prodhyani, Kil Parananda Paramata, Gopi Bhartu, Parakamayora Dasa Dasa. I am not a member of any Varna, I'm not a member of any ashram, I'm not even a man, I'm not a woman, I'm not this, I'm not 18, I'm just a pure spirit soul who is hankering to engage in the loving affairs of God and Krishna. So that's